Well, hello, good evening. Welcome to Sports Today. After two riveting football games last night there at the Euro 2020 round of 16, it's time for England versus Germany, one of the most anticipated football matches in the world, if you like it. And then, of course, there's Sweden versus Ukraine as well, and to make up that last quarterfinal lineup at Euro 2020. But first, we're going to focus on England versus Germany. That's the first game of the night at 9:30 p.m. India Standard Time at Wembley, a historic venue. Of course, it's a historic rivalry as well, really old rivalry. And there was a bit of controversy a couple of days before this hyped game, really, with Germany not being allowed to train at Wembley because of factors which the organizers said might damage the ground further with the rain, etc., etc. And the German, one of the German newspapers called it a scandal. So there's a bit of battle out there already. It's kind of heating up, and I have with me, of course, Chirag and Chinmoy to discuss this game further. Gentlemen, first off, Chirag, this is one of those rivalries. This is one of those mouth-watering clashes that you look forward to, and especially after what happened last night. Nobody would have expected France to be knocked out. So the defending champions are out, the world champions are out, and here you have Germany, who, by the way, defeated Portugal in a high-scoring game in the group stages, and you have England, the oldest rival on the football field, taking on each other to try and get past what has been such an interesting round of 16 so far.
Yeah, it's been crazy, hasn't it? I mean, I don't think there's a single person in this world who would have been able to predict the score lines that we've seen over the last, what,
Mm.
2, 3 days. It's not just yesterday's games, but the games before that in terms of how the Czechs played as well against the Netherlands. Hungary in the group of death, bringing it as close as they did. Yeah, but if anything, it will just add fuel to the fire in both England and Germany's bellies, because look, they would want to know that they can proceed even further. The big teams that we generally talk about are probably not going to be around. Not probably, they're not going to be around. So this is a very, very good opportunity for both of these teams. We spoke earlier, a couple of episodes before, about the Germans and Joachim Löw leaving after the end of the Euros, and this is a very good opportunity for him to leave on a high note. And for the English, I mean, playing at home against the Germans, 66 was the last time they won something of any significance. This is as big as it gets for them. We all know the history. We know that the history has impacted our game. If you guys remember clearly in 2010, when Frank Lampard had that whole goal against Germany, which was disallowed, which crossed the line, and now we obviously have goal line technology on the back of that. So it's a historic clash between these two sides. I am looking at it from a perspective as to how they might line up. The Germans are probably a bit more easier to predict in that sense, in terms of the formations that they might look at. They've been playing three at the back. That's what we can expect even this time round. But it'll be
Mm.
interesting to see how the English counter that. They've got a really, really deep squad. Yeah, so that would be something worth watching.
Absolutely, and that old rivalry, of course. And before I come to Chinmay, Akshat saying it's going to be interesting. Aditya Bhartwaj is asking, is it coming home? That's the motto of the Three Lions every time they pick on a major tournament. Is it coming home, the Chinmay? And the second thing is, we're talking of history. Gareth Southgate will remember what happened in 1996. He missed that penalty, which resulted in a defeat for England in that
Mhm.
thrilling semi-final at Wembley in the 1996 Euro. So there's lots of history, and then there's some vivid memory as well for these guys to be looking at when they take on the field.
But so the history, as you said, very little history to show for England. You come
Mm,
every big tournament comes in, they're really rated as a favorite. And
mm,
you can look at the history. In 1966 only they won the World Cup.
mm,
Nothing major after that. You just
mm.
glance through the statistics. Their best is the semi-final in Euro. You can look at it last year, of course, they reached the semi-final in this World Cup. But in
Yep.
Euro so far, that's their best. And the statistics I've got is 96, as you said, that penalty that Southgate missed. So I call England an eternal uh, optimistic side. I mean, the betting market in the Wall Street, they will go after them, and then it will that suddenly nosedive, right? Never their expectations comes in. Okay, they are billed as the favorite. Now I have got a little things to tell about this England side this year. It's a young side. It's perfect. And see, when in 2010, England met Germany. Germany was at the prime. You can see the guys there. Manuel Neuer is still there. There was Philipp Lahm. There was Schweinsteiger. There was Muller. Right. There was Kadira and Boateng. It's a tremendous side. Joachim Löw had got that. Right. 15 years this man is the helm. And now that side after 2014 slowly faded away. In 2018, they were eliminated in the first round in the World Cup, right? In 2018. Now they are rebuilding. Maybe they got they're defeated by France. Their recent record, they had that 6-0 defeat in the Euro Nations Cup, lost to Northern Macedonia. But having said all these things, Germans, when they're under the cosh, they're the most dangerous side. They can bounce back at any time. And if you can look at this year's Euro stat, their forward line is quite dangerous, quite dangerous. And it's
Absolutely.
that defense that Matt Hummels and all age is little against them. And as the experts are predicting, it will be a match the offense of Germany versus the England defense. England offense, you can see, is underperforming, right? Except for Raheem Sterling, nobody's on song. You can watch. And so what I feel is that no matter what history and everything you look back, only one history that is glittering for England is 1966. Okay. So they have to live on that. I think they have to live on that. And for Germany, everybody knows the 3 Euros they have gone. They have got so many World Cup to show for them, history, culture, everything in favor of them. And no matter what that Wembley goes berserk, whatever happens, I think German will come hard at the Englishman, right? Germans will
Right.
come hard at the Englishman.
But they'll also have to contend with a lot of English support there. There's a lot of English support. It's the most iconic
Yeah.
ground, a lot of people would say. Fans of English football would say that Wembley's probably the
Mhm.
home of the Mecca of football there. But Chirag, the interesting thing about, we've spoken about history, we've touched lightly upon the rivalry. But the thing is that, you again look at the trajectory of this tournament. Look at where Germany are coming up from, the group of death. And we all thought that's going to be such a dangerous group. France, the world champions, are out. Portugal, the defending champions, are out. Germany, well, they've had a mixed tournament. And of course, they defeated Portugal, but then again, England from that group, Croatia are through, the Czech Republic are through, and England topped that group. How much of that confidence will work for both England and Germany, who have defeated a very good side on their way to on the road to the round of 16 here? What's going to be? And also, I would like you to touch upon the formation and the lineup that you think could make up this game.
Yeah, I think so. In terms of the first part, coming into the game, I think the Germans would be hungry. They know that they're playing on a turf which the English were going to get most support in, but the Germans usually perform their best when they're under the cosh, and that is something I'd be looking forward to seeing as to how they actually counter the English offense. Shinwada rightly said that the German defense is a bit, in terms of average age, they're a bit on the older side. However, in terms of the English attacking options, they're quite young. I mean, apart from Harry Kane there, everyone else is quite young, so they'll be quick. And I think their confidence levels going into the games would be quite high, both the German and the English team. I think the English team, however, have not peaked. I think they know that there are several gears that they can get into. The Germans, however, I think have been playing well. I don't think they've peaked either, but I think there is only so much that they can do in terms of the bench strength they have and also the squad in general. The English, however, have a few more gears. So what I'm interested to see in terms of the formation is what they do with Mason Mount. That there's a lot of talk about him coming back into the side, even though he's not trained with them because of this whole COVID restrictions with what happened after the Scotland game. So whether or not Gareth Southgate actually takes a call on Mason Mount, and whether or not he starts or he plays him at all. What would be more interesting to see is that the first two games they lined up in a 4-3-3 formation. Grealish didn't play in the first two games, a start. And he started in the last game against the Czech, and that's because Mason Mount was probably away. And they changed their formation a little bit more. Harry Kane was up front, and Saka obviously came into the side at that point of time. He had a brilliant game. Saka was man of the match in the last game that England played. So I would like to see whether or not they start with Saka, whether or not they'll give Grealish another opportunity. I don't think they will. I think it will probably be either a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, most likely, with the Germans. But then there's one thing that the English have not faced in the tournament so far, is the strength in terms of wing backs that the Germans have, because the Germans will come out at a sort of 3-4-2-1 formation where they'll have three at the back and the four in the middle who are going to bomb up and down, and they play ridiculously well both offensively and defensively. So I wouldn't be surprised to see England actually start their first game this tournament with three at the back, just to counter the wing backs of the Germans. And that would mean a lot of pressure on the likes of Harry Maguire, a lot of pressure on the likes of, if Jordan Henderson was to start. There's a lot of talk about Jordan Henderson. He played towards the end of the last game. Jordan Henderson is a bit more attack-minded than Declan Rice or Calvin Phillips. So yeah, that's what I think it'll be. The game is going to be won or lost a lot down the wings in this particular one, because there are wing backs which are clearly going to be put across from the Germans, and how the English counter that is going to be very interesting to see.
How the English countered that from Germany, and also the Germany's ball possession when it comes to the domination when it comes to ball possession, and also what do you make of the fact that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has also been left out? He had a great Premier League season there with Everton. He played with barely a minute of football at the Euro. And he's not even there. He's not even there in the squad of 23 for the game tonight. So England, what do you make of England's strategies, and how do you think they're going to counter that aspect of Germany's ball possession and the domination there?
According to the pundits, the Englishmen, they're saying that the key player will be Tony Kroos from Germany, and they have Calvin. They are going to have this guy Phillips, right? Calvin Phillips, who will be marking Tony Kroos. Now, here I say about the formation and everything you're talking about, Chirag. The famous guy, one of the world's renowned coach, Fabian Capello, says, what comes first, a system or a footballer? What comes first? Now, he said that, having said all about the 3-4-2-1, 2-4-3-1, you need to fit in one footballer, what he loves doing, right? You cannot restrict a Leo Messi to operate freely for the sake of my system, right? So that's a very important thing. Now, Tony Kroos plays for Real Madrid. We all know how smooth an operator is he. And the two wing backs, Rudiger and Joshua Kimmich. For information, I tell you, Joshua Kimmich ran 13.5 sort of thing kilometer in a match. The GPS recorded. This is one of the maximum in a match day, one person has run. So this guy runs up and down, and that is the reason why Gareth Southgate is thinking about going back to 4-3-2-1 formation rather than 3-4-2-1. Right now, Fabian Capello, I'm coming back to him. He was in the helm of affairs with England, right? And in 2010, they lost 4-1 against Germany, and afterwards he left following a lot of criticism. He said that as an English manager, English coach, it is very difficult to operate, because it is not only the players. Forget about players, the officials, the press and all, they make your task very, very difficult. So he disgusted and he left. Now Gareth Southgate has come in. You go through, so many coaches have come and gone. They have got so many systems and this, except Alf Ramsey in 1966 when they won the World Cup. There's so much of technical stuff and all this has gone for a toss. So that's gone for a toss. So all the discussions we're having can go for a toss. Joachim Löw, for example, 2006 to 2021. In 15 years, you have achieved quite a bit, right? You have got the Euro. You have got one Euro in 2008. He has got one World Cup in 2014. There's a disaster 2018, but he's rebuilding. And I think that I mean, so much of Gareth Southgate is missed in 1996 and so much. I just, by the way, I give you one data. Fabian Capello had a 67% success rate as an English coach, right? He's not being hailed that much. Gareth Southgate so far has 61% in 5 years tenure he has got. So because of the British press, you get so much of Gareth Southgate. My inner sense says Joachim Low will have the last laugh.
All right, then you're saying Germany will be the favorites there. And Chirag, who would you be rooting for? Who do you think
I
have
think
the upper
I
hand?
think I think after a very long time, the English probably go into this as favorites. No, I'm not talking about from the perspective of just how they play football, but in terms of the strength they have in the squad. A lot of how I would measure whether one wins a football game is who they can call upon if things don't go to plan. I agree that a lot of players, you've got to give players the freedom to do what they are best at doing and not be rigid in your system. That's true, I think, in general for life and not just in football. But in terms of adaptability, I think a lot of these English players can adapt to different systems because they play in different systems in their clubs as well. Football is very different from before. Here we're not talking about fitting in Paul Scholes, Steven Gerrard, and Frank Lampard into the same squad. We're talking about players who can play around different positions and do different duties. I feel a lot of this game, which I agree upon, is how the midfield with Toni Kroos and even Gundogan, how they size up against. I'm interested to see if Jordan Henderson is going to play, really, because that changes the game for England's perspective. Calvin Phillips, I definitely feel should start. But also what I think would be very interesting is whether or not Phil Foden plays. Phil Foden is a playmaker, extremely young guy, but very, very experienced for his age, because he would be able to run the channels and play balls according to Harry Kane's runs. Harry Kane is someone who can run off defenders, run off them, receive also deep, or run off on the back of defenders. And Phil Foden can pick him out, and so can Jordan Henderson. He's a bit forward thinking in terms of that. So I'm actually thinking about this from the perspective of England having a good game. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think England will see it through. I mean, England obviously don't want it to go into penalties because that just brings up a lot of memories for them. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping it will be over. Maybe it might go into extra time, but be over by then. Although, as a neutral, I'd love to see it go into penalties. And honestly, after the events of the last couple of days, I fear from making any predictions any further.
No, we're all going to be very, very wary. We're all very that prediction, but I will still stick my neck out and get both of you to do that. Just look back at, because Chirag mentioned the penalty and the history of England and Germany in Euros and World Cups. In all major tournaments, they have clashed 7 times, 2 wins each for England and Germany, but the other 3 have ended in draws. But out of those 2 draws, Germany have progressed twice. 3 draws, they've progressed twice via penalty shootouts. Of course, we all remember 1996 because Gareth Southgate was involved in that game. But before we move to Sweden, Ukraine, Chinmay, your prediction for tonight, England, Germany?
I've got one more point to add before the prediction, right? That's very important. Now, in the first show, I said that which are the team, the fitness I'm talking about, which are the teams which have run the most time, I spend most time on the pitch. There it was found German league, Bundesliga ends quite early. Okay, and the majority of the German squad, they play for clubs in Bayern, Borussia, and all these things, right? So they had minimum time spent on the pitch. Whereas the English Premier League, EPL, is a bit lengthier, and the English players have spent more time on the pitch. So they will be have tired legs. Number 2 is that there is a research which showed that the German players have run more. As I said, Joshua Kimmich, 13.5 kilometers. What it does is, Johan Cruyff had said that on an average in a match, a footballer holds on to the ball for 3 minutes, and it will be more if you're like Messi or Maradona. Now, he says that the most important thing is not the 3 minutes. It's the 87 minutes without the ball, what you do. Now, that
Hmm.
has been the forte of the Germans. They are running machines. Maybe they are light on talent. Maybe the heroes of Germany is on the wane. Having said that, the running machine has remained the same, except for Matt Hummels and all some senior guys. So that's a very, very effective observation that Germany people are not rating much. But I think this is one strong point the Germans have. They will outrun the Englishmen who are on a little bit tired side. And as
Hmm.
you say, predictions, I'm anti-English. I don't know why. Okay, I don't know why, because these people have got all the pranks. They will not allow you to practice. They will stop Sunil Gavaskar from getting inside Lords. Said that where is your ID card? They have all these things, right? You have seen a Roger Federer in the Wimbledon. He was trying to get in the locker room. He said that please show your ID card. And Federer, his security came. So they all got these things. But look at the record. Sorry, it's Roger blank.
Yeah. But then, okay, what prediction are you going for? What score prediction is that then?
For me, as Chirag says, no prediction. You're making a fool of ourselves. But
No,
still,
but still, let's take our neck. Let's
I'll
take our
go for
next. I think it's
Germany.
been great
I'll go for
football.
Germany. I told you,
So,
no, I'll go for Germany.
okay,
I don't know what is the
like with
scorecard,
Chirag,
but
like with
I'll go for
Chirag,
Germany.
okay, then fine. Then, like with Chirag, I'd want to see a penalty shootout, and hopefully England will rewrite history and get past that. You know, it's always fun to watch the England supporters rooting for them because it's been that kind
Mm.
of time for England and their football
Yeah.
team. They want to win a major tournament, and so that they want to see that coming home. It'll be interesting to see. It also interesting to see before we go quickly. It's Sweden versus Ukraine. All the more so because we've seen what's happened so far. Again, both these teams contrasting run to the round of 16. What do you make of that face-off there? We would. Is it only fair to say that this will be of interest only because it will decide who either England or Germany face in the quarterfinal? Chirag.
No, not at all. Not at all. I think it's going to be an extremely, extremely close game in terms of that because both of them have a lot of depth in their squad in terms of experience as well. I mean, you just have to look through their squad. You've got, the Swedes obviously have the likes of Sebastian Larsson, who's been around for ages, Lindelof, who's had a decent season at United. And these guys, on the other hand, in terms of Ukraine, they've got Zinchenko, who had a very good season towards the end with City as well. So they've got a lot of strength in their squad. They both have very similar systems in terms of what they stand by, how they go. The Swedes are a bit more, how would you say it, old school in terms of football. They play 4-4-2 more or less most of the time. So they know exactly where how they're going to be lined up. They've got two guys in the front. They're gonna be very direct in terms of their style of football. The Ukrainians, on the other hand, will be able to maybe put in a couple of wing backs and try and counter the four in the midfield for the Swedes. I actually think this is going to be a game which is going to be quite tight.
Hmm.
It would be more interesting. A lot of this game is being overshadowed by the England-Germany game, which is true. But for the diehard football fans, I'm quite sure, like myself, I would be up to watch it because it's going to be very. I mean, it also gives you a very good indication as to how they might be looking to play moving forward,
Right.
as both of those teams. So yeah, I think the Swedes will probably edge it
Hmm.
towards the end. They had a couple of good results also in the group stages in terms of how they played.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think that's what I'm expecting in terms of the half 12 clash that we have this tonight.
Right, right. Chinmoy, Sweden, Ukraine. Sweden, of course, are only meeting Ukraine because Ukraine got through as one of the best third-place teams in the group stages, thanks to Sweden's victory over Poland, that 3-2, that chaotic
Mhm.
3-2 victory, and now they're going to face off in Glasgow. So it won't be easy sailing for Sweden, who have been undoubtedly dominant. We keep talking about Sweden's depth, but Ukraine that will be a tricky bunch to counter for Sweden before they dream of a berth in the quarterfinals.
Chirag has already spoken about the bench strength, the way they play. I would say that Sweden has a better history. A lot of
Hmm.
people say history is past.
Hmm.
Yesterday is history, tomorrow is mystery. That is a saying. Okay, I took it from Hansi Cronier. Hansi Cronier has passed away. It's a cricket and all these things. So now the thing is, history of course stands because they say you cannot go to market by experience, right? Experience matters. So in that case, Sweden is way ahead. No matter every day something, some teams are proving us wrong. That doesn't make me really scared to say, but I stand for Sweden. Okay, because my take is Chirag has already spoken about the players and all. Okay, I'll stand by Sweden.
Right. And again,
I
that was one of
remember
the earlier.
Ukraine.
Yeah, yeah. Go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a point. I remember I think Ukraine got 2 goals against the Dutch, and the
Right.
Dutch were one of the only teams that won all of their games and
Right.
in the tournament till obviously
True, true, true.
they got knocked out.
Yes.
So the Ukrainians will actually be able to counter a lot of these the defense of the Swedes. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit more technical in terms of that, but yeah, it's something I'm quite looking forward to. Having said that, the Swedes have also actually drawn goalless with the Spanish, and the Spanish ended up scoring 10 goals over the last 2 games, right? So yeah, it's hard to call that one, but I think the Swedes will edge it
Right
in the
then.
end.
So if Chirag, if going with Chirag, he'd probably want a Sweden-England game there. And Chinmoy had already predicted a Sweden-Germany quarterfinal there, if when one of the lineups that he'd
I'll
found.
be happy.
He'll
I'll
be
be
happy.
happy that I
He'll
will
be
say.
happy. I'll be just happy to watch some more scintillating dramatic football and some dramatic results because it was, we were talking about the France-Switzerland
Hmm.
game, and before the show started, and I did not think it was of the highest quality, but it is still fun to see such a high level game there. Round of 16 at the Euro, the world champions, and the pressure that they were under. The big games can produce a lot of pressure, and there'll be a lot of pressure for the England for some of the junior players, some of the younger players in the England squad there against Germany. But
I,
again,
I
thank you.
I
Yes, yes, Jira. Yes, go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that it's also brilliant, will be brilliant to see all the fans back in the stadium for such a big game.
Yes.
In the likes of a stadium like Wembley, it is something else to have 45,000 people over there watching their
Hmm.
side play. So again, the stakes couldn't be higher. It's going to be quite technical in terms of how they position themselves. But
Hmm.
yeah, again, you're absolutely right. We're really looking forward to it, to some good football tonight.
And
I
Chinmay
also have a
will,
point.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
go on.
I'll also sign off with a point. There is a
Hmm.
saying, if everything goes according to the predictions, according to the rule, for example, Netherlands versus Czech, we all thought Netherlands will win. Now, when
Hmm.
the upset comes, that interest generates, the enjoyment comes into play. Maybe you are going to miss Ronaldo, right? Maybe you are going to miss some big names, right? For example, France. But the unpredictability brings about the charm. No matter, we are going to miss out all those stars. So this Euro is giving us this, right? Unpredictability, although at the cost of losing the stars.
Hmm. Well, that's the beauty of sport. That's the beauty of football, as we've seen it over the years. And
Sure.
heartbreaks happen. And for neutral sports fans, for neutral football fans, at the end of the day, you just want to enjoy and treasure these moments. But thank you so much, Chirag, Chinmoy. Chinmoy is
Pleasure.
of course backing Germany to take this. Chirag says England have the edge. I want a penalty shootout between these two teams. Want some drama and
Oh, what's
whoever
your
takes.
what's your take?
What do
What's your take?
I feel, I think England, if it goes to a penalty shootout, I just want England to take this one, just to rewrite history, and also, to get out some nice headlines and stories tomorrow. Compare history
Yeah,
from
yeah.
and
But
from
they
1996 and yeah,
they would be so they would be practicing that. I'm quite sure in training of the last couple of days, knowing
he
Gareth
must have.
Southgate, he's probably training that, and they would be well prepared. But yeah, let's have a look.
Night of redemption there for Gareth Southgate. That will be the headline screaming out, I'm sure, somewhere tomorrow if England do take that one home. And with
Yeah.
Sweden versus Ukraine, I think again I'd go with the both of you that I think Sweden have that edge over Ukraine, but they can't take the Ukrainians too lightly. Though Sweden have showed off remarkable depth and wealth of talent. But thank you so much, gentlemen, again for your views on Euro 2020. That's that for the games tonight:
Sure.
England versus Germany, Sweden versus Ukraine, the first game going off in exactly 1 hour from now. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports Today with all your comments. By the way, a lot of support here for England from the likes of Akshat and Indranil saying heart says England, mind Germany. Well, we'll see. We'll wait and watch to see what happens. Thank you so much. Do subscribe to Sports Today. There'll be plenty more, of course, building up to the women's teams, to women's cricket in England, and of course, India in Sri Lanka. They were right in Sri Lanka, so we'll build up to that as well as indeed with the quarterfinals and the semi-finals heading into the final of Euro 2020 and get you some updates from what's happening in Wimbledon. Do join us here. Thank you. Have a good evening.